All right, folks, doing the audio tip. We'll be there in a second. All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Foxtrotting and the Foxhole, Season 11, Episode 4, number 324 overall. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here, coming to you on a super Sunday evening. I know, a little tardy again this week. We'll just call it from here until we get the football season. We're on summer hours as far as this irregular schedule while we're doing that construction thing and a bunch of other fun stuff that goes along with it. Nonetheless, it's great to be here. We thank all the partners that provide gear that make this all happen and illuminate this wonderful Eagles Nest 2 Studio B where this is coming from. Heck yeah. You want to be on the podcast, sponsor it, ftinfx at gmail.com or leave a message 541-525-0896. Like and subscribe the video and FTINFX Media's YouTube channel. We can always use the engagement, yo. You'll see the info again and again in the trailers. All right. Enough yapping. Let's get kicking in here. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. You know, it's so funny, like doing this on Sundays. You know, normally during football season, I'm locked in watching the No Fun League and unwinding from college. But yeah, in a more leisurely place, a lot happens from Sunday, and a lot of information overlaps and makes it interesting to build content for the next episodes. Not to mention aftershocks. And by the way, we hope to have that Tuesday or Wednesday. Probably Wednesday, because if we saw the last episode, Aftershocks conversation with SJ. I've been working on a project she has going on. It's good to see SJ back on the Foxhole, I might add. Yeah. More of her when the time comes, for sure. All right, folks. Episode 324 coming at you. Open face. I know, it's been a hot minute. But, you know, I'd be remiss if I did not give a belated birthday shout out to the Queen, a true Queen, Miss Rachel Robinson. Elegance, dignity, you know, rolls like Jackie O in that kind of way, if you know what I mean. But yeah, you know, the rock behind Jack Roosevelt Robinson is still with us at 104 years old. May she have another trip, 2 or 3 around the sun. Yeah. The world's a better place with her in it. That's all I gotta say. You know, I mentioned this on Aftershocks, and we'll just scratch the surface here briefly. You have to be living under a rock to know to not know that ESPN went all buck wild and got rid of some high-priced talent, or if not high-priced, highly visible, and got rid of the woke warriors, got rid of some stalwarts. Of course, it's not going well with the usual suspects when it comes to the WSN. You know, I mean, yes, the race baiters and hustlers are in on this too, but this is more a WSM kind of thing in terms of the woke sports media and the whining, and of course Ryan Clark being crying like a bee on his own platform. Hey, I mean, I've been let go a couple of times. It ain't the funnest moment anyone can go through, But you do not go on the air for everyone to see you crying like a bee. No wonder some of the folks are enjoying it. And obviously, they had it in for you. I don't believe the whole Peter Schrager nonsense. I think, pulling the Ben Crump card and putting false information out there, that's what led to your behind getting ran. I still don't get with Cam other than, as we said last week, that right, they're going in a certain direction, and I think that sort of flamboyance is probably not where it's going to be. It's going to be more of, hey, we're hanging out with the bros and McAfee. Still don't know what it means for Stephen A. Smith, in all of this. I mean, you've got Linda Cohn, because now she's retired and she can speak her mind on her podcast. She's basically called the whole thing, as I call it, right, the Summer Night Massacre, as far as all these people, a lot of prominent names there, being let go. She thought it was buffoonery and stupidity, and I'm with her. I feel that you could have handled it better with Ryan Clark. You didn't have to leak it to Outkick, who obviously were doing the Texas two-step and doing a little foxtrot themselves with their little waltz about him getting fired. That's a major, major clickbait for them. But yeah, there's some things that went on with that obviously weren't cool. And the mouse, you should be criticized by a lot of folks, whether it's Dan Patrick, what's his space, Lebitard, obviously LC, Linda Cohen, JB, and Coach Smitty, and that gang as well. And these are folks that necessarily are not fans of Ryan Clark. I know I'm not, and I'm not feeling sorry for him, because when you go on TV and cry like a bee like that, well, there's only so much I can do, especially like you, Jamel Hill, and of course, Collateral Damage, Michael Smith, and Kerry Champion. When you dig your own grave by interjecting politics in a space that only needs so much of that, well, the proof's always in the details, isn't it? I guess it's been a long week, and I almost feel bad sometimes, because by the time, especially if I don't get this out on a Friday afternoon, some of the things that happen, that I guess it resonates more closer to the event. And this went viral, but there's just so many things happening in the sports landscape right now, right? It doesn't, I guess, how do I say this? Something doesn't stay in the cycle too long, unless it's like, what's her face? Philly's Karen or something like that. But did you see the older Cubs fan that went up to the kid sitting in front of him, who refused to stand for the national excuse me, refused to stand for the national anthem, and it went upside his head, went upside his biscuit. Like, hey, don't be disrespecting the stars and stripes. Stand your ass up and take your cap off. Did he go too far? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I got my patriotism. But this is one free country, and maybe if you fought for it, you feel a little bit differently in terms of, oh hell no, I ain't putting up with that kind of disrespect. I get it, but I don't think you should be able to accost people and put your hands on somebody else. Maybe you have a polite discussion afterwards about maybe thinking about the right to go to a ball game, the right to, be a little snarky or non-participatory. You feel me there? All right. What else do we got? Le'Veon, what's up, bro? Getting the bracelets for not paying. See, this is what I'm saying about these athletes. I mean, yes, the athletes, and the fact that, we're a superficial society. You got the bling, and you are a bad mofo on that stage. There's a lot of, benefits that come with it. But I still say it's all about the sexual discipline. You can't be having all these baby mamas and not paying your child support, right? If you're not gonna have discipline and you're gonna put your seed all over the place, you got to make sure you take care of it. Now, there may be a lot to how that all happened, but it's just once the deed is there, and they've been brought into this world. Come on, man. I don't have to give a Whitlock kind of ceremony like that. I'm just like, hey, where's the sexual discipline? Because if you're gonna do that and you don't pay, you're gonna end up in bracelets, right? Just saying. Le'Veon Bell. And you left football early. Yeah, you probably should have hung around a little while longer. Even though I think he still thinks he could come back. You know, I think an interesting thing that's kind of come up this past week is, that Thomas Edward Brady, that TB12 guy. A lot of folks are feeling he's trying too hard to remain in the spotlight, like somebody else we'll talk about in a closer look. But we'll get to that when we get to it. Let's talk about Brady. And I kind of agree. I don't necessarily think we're getting Brady fatigue, but it's obviously, I don't know. He likes being that dude. And maybe he's like, hey, I had arguably the greatest career, period. Especially with all the rings. In American sports. I want to bask in this. And, I do think there is a little, I don't know, insecurity there. Because as great as this record is, there's old heads like me who know the game was tougher in the 70s and 80s into the 90s and wonder, what guys like Montana or Roger Staubach or even Dan Marino would have done in an era where they were basically, I don't know, a lot of times tackling dummies with the worst result many times as far as what you could get away with. Charles Martin, a Jim McMahon kind of nonsense. Or, even, into the early 2000s with Tony Siragusa, pancaking Rich Gannon. And the Raiders might have been able to get another ring if that hadn't happened. But it's like Brady came in right at that point where, cleaned the game up, and some say it's a better aesthetic game. Aesthetically it's better, and that may be true. But yeah, I was raised in the Iron Era where, they could knock your ass out if that was a means of winning the game. But it's a preference thing because you had to make the game safer. And yeah. Anyways, I know I got off a tangent there, but Brady and everything that he's kind of doing, it is kind of cringy. But once again, we had Jordan chose to do it another way. Bill Russell before some of these guys, right? It's like, yeah, I know I'm great. I don't need to parade around like you and a certain someone. So it's interesting to me, and Brady's always going to be unlikable because he's always going to be associated with, stuff like Spygate, Deflategate, and just the whole scummy vibe that comes with that Patriots dynasty, to this day with Ray Rossini. And then kind of, hopping to Tampa Bay and a team that was loaded. No, it doesn't diminish. Like I said, for me, to say, yeah, he probably had, one of the greatest sports careers ever. Obviously, I wouldn't put it above Bill Russell. And I'm like somebody who does respect and knows what a badass Bill Russell was. 11 of 13, always had money in his wallet. I'd put him like one. Then you got to go with like Brady as far as, in my lifetime, mind you, right? Because obviously, when it comes to, people like Ruth and Mantle, those folks stacked a lot of trophies in their era as well. Anyways, all right, I'll be watching this in terms of this so-called Brady fatigue on a whole nother level. And people are taking some serious shots at them, mind you. Okay, what else do we got? We got Nike, right? Obviously, being here in Oregon. Obviously, being in Eugene, the footprint that Phil Knight's Colossus has. I do wonder though when I keep reading reports of its imprint getting smaller. A lot of retail stores folding up shop, and maybe it's just another byproduct of where we are in the mid 2020s, with a lot of things constricting. Given the waste treatment facility that we are dealing with on a daily basis. And at some point, all those cool $400 shoes, how many of them can you have at this point, unless you've got some kind of great hustle going on? Same thing with the gear. Just harder and harder to, convince people that you still have the hip technology and all that kind of stuff that people want. Obviously, you're always going to do great business with the leagues and teams, but I do think it is interesting from a retail perspective. They are shrinking their footprint. Okay. So, the whole Wilt Chamberlain thing, right? We talked about this a little while ago. His warm up from the 72, I guess it was finals. I'm not sure if it's the finals or Western Conference finals. Point being, kid got it for $3. Some folks were hoping it could go as high as $250,000. Still, you fetch $89,000. That's pretty good return on the $3. I'm like going, yeah, go bigger. I mean, I would have probably never been up in Hillsboro, and a Goodwill, no less, but damn. I could have loved to stumble onto something like that and get that big bag of cash as SJ and Flo J's mom was always talking about, because we all want to live right. Okay, lastly, as far as Open Face is concerned, how about Sophie Wofi? My goodness. I didn't think this was possible when the summer began, but I'm starting to think, how MAGA Barbie is always kind of associated with someone like Sydney Sweeney, even though that's probably not her politics. But because not only the MAGA hats and the simps, but I'm starting to think Sophie is outgunning Sydney Sweeney as far as America's Sweetheart is concerned. For probably all the wrong reasons, and I'm sure Sophie's politics are probably along the lines of mine or something like that, given the vibe she puts off. But, she's made some interesting moves, as we've talked about earlier in the week, basically laying the gauntlet down. Like, I still wonder, but I'll talk a little bit about the Queens when we get to the NBA beat. But yeah, I'm just more fascinated that, right, she's just kind of slowly elbowing Sydney Sweeney out of the way. All right, folks. We are off and running in the Foxhole. When we come back, we're going to rock you with something else. See you momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold, chilling like Kavicha Karvachkalia. A little bit of a technical snafu here, which is going to require me to recut this scene as opposed to the original podcast, hence the costume change. Kind of sitting here, just dealing with this sort of thing. As we say, we're always under construction. Instead of getting frustrated and flustered, we just go back and we recut things. So anyhow, it is a little bit later in the evening, so we won't get the homies and homettes to get to our Gulfstream G650. Instead, we'll just take the drones on a night flight over the UFO, and we'll call it good as far as taking the high view above the campuses of America. There's a lot going on this week as far as what's happening on campus. So let's get cracking. Well, insiders, and this could be, Feinbaum, Heather Dinich, a cast of many folks who provide wonderful content and great information when it comes to what's happening in the college ecosphere. These folks are basically saying there will be no vote on the college sports bill this summer. What a surprise. We've got the midterms coming up. And when it comes to Congress actually doing something when they're supposed to, when you need them to, you can guarantee that's never going to happen. And this is pretty much what we're seeing in this particular instance. I mean, granted, there's a lot of things going on, a war, which is leading it to all kinds of economic ramifications, whether you believe it or not. Depends on how you see it. But we're not here to discuss that. There's other platforms available to argue those things. Point being is, it is not a surprise with so much at stake that there will not be a vote on the CSB, which really is kind of disturbing to me, because who knows how long it's going to linger, because there's no way it's happening this fall with the midterms and everything at stake. And also with the Big Ten and the SEC kind of sitting there doing their version of the ESL, basically saying that, yeah, we're down with the CSB if we get the provisions we want. Otherwise, we will break away and form our own Super League, which I get the feeling if we get to that Rubicon moment, Congress and other people will intervene and it won't happen. I just don't see that kind of lunacy taking place anytime soon. I mean, Greg Sankey came out during SEC media days and basically threw down the gauntlet saying it's real talk. Well, of course it's real talk, but is it real action though? And that's where I say British Petroleum as far as that goes. Wouldn't be the last time I was wrong if it did come to fruition, but I just don't see it happening. No way do the adults, when they finally decide to get in the room. Just a question that with what's going on in Congress, we may not see it this school year, which is going to be disturbing, because what does that mean? That means more mofos can find ways to find some whackball judge, basically go to the courts for relief. It's funny because the NCAA is actually doubling down on its age-based eligibility rules, and Division II wants to close the loophole as well. It's like saying, we're not going to be a place for you old heads that want to continue to keep playing to find a place to do that. So a lot's going on here, and with Congress basically abdicating, yeah, this is going to be another intriguing school year, as pretty much everyone has been in the 2020s. Just saying. And one of the interesting takeaways I did get from the SEC's media day, Will Stein, he's at Kentucky, so he's down there in Lexington. He's basically selling the wolf tickets that he's going to be the next Signetti. He comes out and says, if the Wildcats have success, it's going to be because of me. And I'm like, well, water's wet, violets or water's wet, roses are red. Ben Cup is always race hustling and ambulance chasing. So what else are you supposed to say? Whether you can replicate what Coach Sig did in Bloomington and Lexington remains to be seen. But what else are you supposed to say? And so you out here talking tough and doing your best Clint Eastwood impersonation only goes so far. Be a Signetti as opposed to talking like one. That's all I gotta say. Another interesting takeaway from this past week is St. Nick. And you're gonna love St. Nick, Nick Saban. He's one of those guys, like I said about Brady earlier, who's had an extraordinary career, maybe as successful as anyone on the coaching level in American sports history, which is saying a lot. So when he speaks, it does resonate. And what he basically said, without pissing off all the push to 24 zealots, is he doesn't like it. He kind of offered his way of how he would implement it, which is more of a 16 to 20, and kind of admitting that we may not even have 12 teams that are really good enough, but doing it in a way so not to offend the greedy folks and not to come across as some traditionalist stuck in his ways. Clever man that Nick Saban is. Stay tuned as far as the insights he drops. Because I said, we're in limbo for, I think, another year in terms of being able to land the plane when it comes to the new normal. Then we go to Ann Arbor, which is another interesting storyline. Now we find out that they are going to basically let their battered AD Ward Manuel, he gets this year, then basically he's been told to hit the bricks. Now this has been an interesting 6 years in Ann Arbor. You've got a national championship in football and basketball, but you have enough stinky diapers to basically, I don't know, if it's beyond a waste treatment facility, what do we call it? Like that situation that's going on in Boyle Heights. If you know, you really know. But that said, right, you've got Dusty May, basically like, FTS, I'm out of here. Everything that went on with Harbaugh didn't go on. Obviously, the Connor Shallon thing. Obviously, the really stinky diaper when it comes to Sharon Moore. Yeah. Can't wait to see what the next chapter of Michigan Wolverines athletics looks like, and what's the postmortem going to be when we really get down to brass tacks with what went down over the last, maybe 8 or 9 years over there. We got the popcorn ready, I tell you that. Okay, what else do we have here? Well, let's go to Tuscaloosa, the University of Alabama. Haven't been really talking about them as much as we used to, speaking of St. Nick's old stomping grounds. How about their content director getting arrested in a human trafficking sting? Wrap your brain around that one. No, he wasn't running the hose. He was trying to get some booty and got caught up in that. Oh boy, the cookout over the Labor Day weekend, gonna be fun with the family of the peeps as far as talking your way out of that one. Just saying. And speaking of Feinbaum, he's been dropping all kinds of truth bombs, or trying to. I mean, it's kind of funny, the one guy that comes on the show, what's his name? I can't think of it at the second. He shows up at SEC Media Days last week and basically gets tossed for trying to be a media guy. Just like, no, you're just a content creator like everybody else. Get your booty off to the second floor like everybody else. You don't belong down here with the real important people. But Feinbaum was, basically like everybody else at the Mouse, and it's been a crazy week at the Mouse, sort of looking at Texas and UTA, Sark, all that stuff. Stephen A. Smith, like, hey, we don't need the baby Arch Manning. I don't think anybody's babying him. But I like what Feinbaum said, where when it comes to the Longhorns, it is really a matter of title or bust. And I feel that way about them. I feel that way about Oregon. Oklahoma, there are some teams that fit into that category, or if you don't win it, especially the kind of resources that you are spending to get a roster together that's worthy of winning a natty, it is title or bust. There is no moral victories in the arms race that these people are currently playing. It's simple as that. And so I agree with Feinbaum. It is title or bust for certain schools, and UTA is one of those. Hook 'em horns. And lastly, you've got Duke and Michigan. Remember that whole thing about them kind of creating their own thing as far as hoops and creating these super matchups? Well, leave it to the powers that be to not be able to agree on the numbers. And the whole dispute, I guess, with Amazon means this whole thing's not going to happen. We're not quite ready for that yet. Stay tuned as far as that goes. Okay, folks. Well, let's get down to anything else we've got here. Yeah, I think that's it for this segment. Like I said, we had to like recut this one. It is what it is. Like we said, we're always under construction. Anyways, we will be back with something you should probably know on the other side. Peace. All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Let me make an adjustment. No, we're always having fun. Yeah, it probably was a little bit wonky in terms of the way the angle was placed in the last shot, but yeah. That's what happens when you're a one-person crew. You can only do so much adjusting and talking. But yeah, we're getting better at that. So just, as always, be patient with us. All right. Let's do one of our favorite segments of the Foxtrotting and the Foxhole podcast. Something you should probably know. Or things that happened this past week in the world of sports you might want to know. Or possibly care about. Wow, there's a lot going on here, right? I mean, since I was on the air, I think it was, last Sunday? But obviously, this was before... I think the episode came out before Ryan Fox slammed the door on the Open Championship. Just walked up there and drained that putt on 18, which was just crazy. Crazy. I mean, what scrambled in the end, great drama as a major championship tends to be. But I just love the way it's like, okay, enough blanking around here. I'm just going to close the door on this. And yeah, that was a heck of a conclusion. To the major season. I thought Scotty kept it interesting, as Scotty's going to do. Rory fizzling on his own turf was kind of weird, but Rory's like that. I mean, I don't know how he's so locked in, at Augusta, but I guess I do. But it's kind of weird. And other times you're just like, well, hold on a second here. I'm kind of looking away, so... Tried to do too many things at once. Okay. Yeah, I guess that Scotty's always in the mix. I'm just looking at the 3M. He had the kid, what was it? Michael Kim. He carded like a 59. But in the end, it looks like Jackson, what is that? Colvin ends up 25 over to beat Scotty by 3 strokes. So, yeah. So that's happening there. Yeah, interesting couple of weeks for Scotty. I mean, clearly, cumulatively, he is showing why he's the best golfer in the world. You can't win it all the time, but he's always in the mix. So, I got nothing but mad props for that guy anyways. How about the Live? I was kind of watching a little bit of the Live the other day. I'm telling you, man, those broadcasts with that cheesy music, it's just so cringy every time I try to watch it. As I look at Brian, just like, well, dude, I know you're getting that money still. I don't know how, but you need to get your boo-boo back over stateside. Stop it with this nonsense. This George is just silly. I mean, what? They're being sued by a Canadian tech firm for like unpaid invoices. The Asian Tour just joined an alliance with the PGA and the European Tour, which, is going to make Live even more wobbly. Yeah, it is dying a pretty vicious death. Now, some hedge fund wacko could come in here at the 11th hour and we can see something different. But I just don't know why you would throw good money at this product. It ain't happening. It's just not. How about Charlie Woods? Yeah, that Charlie Woods. You know, Tiger's son. I guess he was in the U.S. Junior Amateur, and he lost out because he got rattled because somebody was being too crazy with their shutter, being a shutter bug. He's got pissed off about it. I mean, after watching how Ryan Fox drained that, just walked up and drained that putt to win the Open, I don't know, Charlie. You need to like just concentrate more, or like channel your daddies. But Daddy would have probably been a bee about it too. But Daddy would have somehow sank the putt and just put that fist in the air. But we won't be too harsh on you, Charlie. We'll cut you some slack. All right. Got a double dose of NASCAR. I was kind of psyched. I actually had time to watch some of the race today. They were at the Brickyard. I mean, last week they were in Nashville with Joey Logano. Been a while since I've talked about that guy getting the win. And then this week you got Corey Haim taking the honors at the Brickyard. Another win for Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin's 23XI. 2311, however we want to call it. But yeah, hell of a year for them. But it is kind of interesting now that folks have quieted down on, gee whiz, Jordan's about to take over NASCAR. All kinds of fans are going to flock to NASCAR, the start that Mr. Reddick had. And I just was so giggling. And it's just like, so crickets from that world. They've moved on to so many other things. Okay. You got my man, Mr. Alex P. He won down in Music City as well. So, double dose of F1 too. Kimi winning last week in the Belgian Grand Prix. And today, Lando Norris. He's hearing me after I was calling him out about where's Lando. Lando on top of the podium. The Hungarian Grand Prix. Mad Max second, and I believe, Kimi was in third. So, okay. Kimi lurking, getting back on the podium. Mad Max there, but obviously Lando Norris got tired of folks like me saying, where's Lando at? Because here I am, y'all. Good for you. Speaking of speed, props to Noel Lyles and the legendary Sha'Carri Richardson taking the honors in the United States Track and Field Outdoor up there in New York. Always, props there, and what's been an incredible summer for track and field aficionados. Yeah. Speaking of another form of speed, how about this guy? I know I get it wrong. What is it? Taja Pogacar. About the choice of elite company, guys like Eddie Merckx, Bernard Hinault, winning a 5th Tour de France. He pretty much got it wrapped up. I think last time I checked, he was up like 7.5 minutes. So, ain't nobody sucking that up. Right, then, I guess over the weekend, as far as the heavyweights, if anybody cares, both Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury won their tune-up fights. The interesting thing with Anthony Joshua, he got knocked down twice, and it looked like this whole big fight that's supposed to happen sometime this fall or early next year could have been in jeopardy. He got, rattled twice, but to his credit, well, he knocked it. I can't think of the cat's name that he fought, but, I was watching the highlight clips. He knocked that guy stringless, and it's just like, oh, okay. And I'm like, and homeboy got in the ring with you? Yeah, no wonder his face got rearranged, and if he's smart, he'll never get near the ring again. Okay, folks, that's what's happening with something you should probably know. We'll come back with another mix of something cool momentarily. All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here, trying to keep things locked down on a sweet Sunday evening. The Phillies doing the BTA thing to the Yankees, 11-4. What are we in the eighth? Yeah, I got. But this is the fun part. I guess this is when you're supposed to go camping. This is when you're supposed to go see Beck at a winery and things like that. Because there's nothing really going on. And I'll get into that a little bit later in terms of my disappointment with some of these leagues not taking advantage of this window. Okay. So, as we do when we do the Nightfall of Diamonds, we get our hippie love in, then we talk a little baseball. That's why it's the Nightfall of Diamonds. Get it? Yeah. Anyways, Dark Star crashes, mirror shatters. What do we have here? Well, good grief. Fish in this incredible summer where they are just leaving smoking craters everywhere they go. They hit the Mecca after doing an interesting night in Syracuse where they had to cut it early because of the weather. At MSG, what was the night? I actually didn't get to watch. Well, I watched part of it. But yeah, I think it was last night where, because of a power failure, the first set was cut early. They were MSG with this big 90s theme. I think first net was 92, 93, 94 so far. Tweezer Fest last night. They're killing it, okay? If fish isn't your thing, I don't know what to tell you. But if you do like the PH and you're not checking them out right now, get on it. Find somebody or go buy the pass, whatever the case may be, how you get, your PH on. But if you're not checking this out, get to it. Oh, I was out in the lot. I was going to make a mini episode for the cheese. Yeah, the cheese came to Eugene this past weekend, and with a friend of the show, another JG, I was hanging out in the lot. Didn't go in, but I was outside taking it in. I could hear the music. I'm not as enthralled with SCI as I once was. I don't do too many incidents anymore, but it was fun. Kind of a frown for the cutbird in terms of maybe that's just more of the ducks expanding their footprint. But there's no shakedown hardly. There's nowhere to do it. And it's just not cool. If you know Eugene and you can still have a cool scene, if you know what I mean. And if you know what I mean, you really know what I mean. And that's all, another thing that progress, as Brother Rousseau says to his lackey in that episode of The Wire, is just like, oh gosh, okay, here comes progress taking something else away and making certain things that used to be fun less fun. Oh, I've got to guess, as far as the local scene goes, when we start getting the scene reviving again, because the scene's kind of intermittent. Anyways, let me not get too far away. It's going to be interesting, and I need to sit down and do a deep dive, getting slightly away from the hippie bus, but we talk popular culture when we can. How about Rush going to the Spear? I know with the new drummer, and I hear she's really bringing in, or she'd make Neil Peart proud from what people were telling me. I haven't done a deep dive yet and actually listened to some of the watched some of the pro shot videos on YouTube. I need to, but yeah, I think Rush at the Spear gonna be pretty crazy. And now Rush was like the first concert of legitimate bands I probably went to. I think when I was in 9th grade. So yeah, that's cool. Heck yeah. All right, let's park the buses. I can't think of anything else. I'm sure I can. Obviously, when it comes to the dead, more 88s this week. But obviously, they had the released 24-bit of Springer's Inn, Gresham, 1970, an Oregon show. Just kind of checking that out. I was really digging Winterland 77 from the PD drops, and also Oakland 79. Yeah, Fruit Baskets coming from the Dead universe. Even though they don't have anything active musically, there's still a lot of... It's a smorgasbord of goodness, is all I can say. Okay. With our 8-sided Hallelujah hat track, we park the bus. Let's talk some baseball. Dodgers visit the White House for the second time, because they are back-to-back champions. Two people weren't there, and you can, I don't know, analyze why they weren't, but no biggie. Everybody else was there, had a good time. Of course, Dodgers go to the White House. It wouldn't be this world if there wasn't a certain amount of controversy. And my man Kiki Hernandez, he clearly, felt bad going last year, decided to opt out. And when fan decided to let them, like the older Cubs fan I talked about earlier, slapping the kid, somebody went off on Mr. Hernandez, and Mr. Hernandez pushed back and just said, basically, F you. And, basically, like, outed the guy, as far as shaming him, put out his contact information. And, like I've said, it's kind of like that scene in Band of Brothers when Winters and Sybil, right? They have that, that last encounter. I don't think, are they in Bavaria? Yeah, at the time. I think they're still... Anyways, the scene, and it's like, right, you salute the ring, not the man, and that's what I feel about people coming to the White House. All this political theater of not showing up. Now, I think as an individual, I got no problem with that. If it revolts your politics, and you make an individual decision, but the team itself decides it wants to, I'm cool with that. That's what makes this country great, isn't it? So, yeah, it just was interesting that some people just said, yeah, it's really hard for me. I love the Dodgers are my love, but them doing this just makes it hard for me to root for them. And I'm just like, really? Really? We're going to the White House. But it's okay for the All-Stars, and I'll get to that later. It's okay for the All-Stars to hang out with Obama, and everybody thinks it's cool. Like I said, this isn't a knock on Barry. But it's okay for that to happen, but you all want to lose your minds when your team goes and hangs out with Trump. Grow the F up, people, okay? You can separate the politics from the art itself and let certain traditions and rituals be what they are. If not, you continue being insufferable and miserable. Nothing we can do in the Foxhole to prevent you from doing that if that's how you roll. Did I say that? Damn straight I did. Okay. More probably on Aftershocks when I have a chance to unpack. It's Cooperstown weekend with Mr. Jones, Mr. Beltran, and Mr. Kent getting enshrined. Hopefully, I get a chance to get the highlights of what their speeches and the moments. I'm not that enthralled with this particular class, but then again, when it comes to Hall of Fame classes right now, in my opinion, not to be enthralled with. It is what it is. Not saying people aren't worthy, but it just seems like the standard, it ain't what it used to be. And, with the PEDs and everything else that's happened, it's par for the course when it comes to the national pastime. And why sometimes it is the national pastime. But hey, we're neither here nor there. Okay, the Bo Sox, obviously their streak, I think, went to 15. Mentioned that on Aftershocks. Put a feather in my cap because I had been speaking about the Red Sox long before. Even when I thought they were being a stinky diaper, but I kind of felt like you needed to keep an eye on them. And right now, they're looking pretty dangerous. I think, 5, 6 games now behind the Rays, who, kind of sputtering. Mm-hmm. What's more wild at this point? It's right. What is today? It is July 26th. So obviously, we're winding down with July. Yeah. The Chicago White Sox, who are not that far removed from being a true dumpster fire, leading the AL Central at this point, or the Rangers leading the AL West, and what are they like? Maybe 1-2 games above 500 at this point. So what's more shocking? Well, I gotta go with the White Sox. I mean, the Rangers, they've gotten some love and have won not that long ago. I mean, the White Sox, they were bad. They were like, were like the Rockies and where Kansas City. I mean, they were bad. I mean, historically bad. And for them to have turned it around the way that they have. I mean, remember there was talk about them possibly abandoning the South Side and looking for greener pastures as a way of, infusing life into that franchise. Ain't nobody seeing that on the South Side right now, especially since y'all are rolling with the Pope as well. Good for them. I mean, the AL West, that's a bad, I think, right. Team in the cellar still has a chance because, like the Angels, I think they're the ones in the cellar. But the division's so bad, if they have a strong August, they could be back in the mix. Highly unlikely, given the Angels. But hey, you never know. Okay. So what do I have for frowns this week as far as baseball? Oh, I'm going to go with the Mariners, going back to the AL West. I mean, all the hope we've had for them in the last 2 years, you definitely, being in the Northwest, even though being here in Eugene, that makes things a little bit more unique, but it's still Mariners country. Not really Mariners country, but it's not anti-Mariners country. How about that? There were a lot of M's fans, in this part of the universe. But the thing about it is, they're kind of disappointing right now. I think 51-53. They're 4-6 in their last 10. Now, obviously, a lot can happen in August and September. But so far, based on what I've seen the last 2 seasons, this is kind of disappointing. Another team that's disappointing. I was going to say, the Marlins were going to be one of my highlights. Still not bad. They're only 2 games under. But they've lost 12 in a row. And I'm just sitting there thinking, my goodness, if you haven't lost 12 in a row, y'all might be kicking it. Just saying. Okay. So I'm not sure. I think this is heading into the week. The power rankings, according to the Mouse. ESPN. You got the Dodgers at 1, the Brew Crew 2, the Braves at 3, the Rays at 4, and the Pinstripes, those boys in the Bronx, at number 5. Make sense? I don't know, with the Red Sox coming the way that they are, still plenty of time in August for them to move up in the power rankings, Ken. I'll leave you with this one as far as the segment is concerned. Word on the street. Mr. Cuban buying a part of the A's. And of course, everybody's joking like, oh, well, he was about to be a bust until he bought dude wipes. I'm like, that guy's got money coming out of his eyeballs, nostrils. I mean, how do you think Coach Sig has the budget that he can make Indiana a national champion? Yeah. Anyway, keep an eye on this in terms of, obviously joining Mr. Fisher is what it is, but I am interested. Who knows? Keep an eye on Mr. Fisher, maybe quietly giving up some of the power and some big players coming in. I know folks have been cynical about this, but watching that stadium rise, the vibe is growing. I think this is going to be really cool. So, all right, folks. When we come back, we will do a little hardwood and kick it like that. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Boy, oh boy. Yeah, it's probably being abbreviated NBA beat because, I think we'll save the juicy stuff for a closer look. But let's see here. Obviously, major news. You'd have to be hiding under a rock if you didn't hear that. major movement in the NBA. Excuse me. I still can't get over the whole thing of the Heat leaking and it not being there. And I mean, the conversations, I don't know. Like I said, I got a lot to say about that. It is interesting, I think, if you are a Commanders fan, why are the Commanders or are you discussing them in the NBA beat, Ken? Well, with my man Josh Harris, born in the same day and year, so, we get that connection. Him owning the Devils and the 76ers, I think if you're a Commanders fan, and based on what's happened this week, you're just like, wow. You get a chip with this stack team, the Sixers, and you get the new RK up on time or even ahead of schedule, you're going to be one of the biggest players of the biggest stages. Just saying. And I'm asking, my bias is not. Yeah, this is completely removed from what my bias is. This is just looking at this in the meta and going, we're watching you, Josh Harris. Lost in all of this, the Dubs won the Summer League title, even though I think it's Kyle Kuzma who claims that team with D-Lo and all those books, that was the greatest Summer League team ever. A lot of ballers on that team, I will admit that. But do you really want to go around saying you were the greatest Summer League team ever? Okay. Another interesting story right now, and this is getting a lot of traction, and once again, we'll give ourselves some props about the Blazers. And the thing is, because Gazano and others are really, they're like the four horsemen. They're playing the trumpet. They're playing the trumpets, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And it's getting pretty serious. And I do like, and I always wondered about this, and I'm sure if you follow these platforms, I had some questions about Miss Allen. I like that people are putting it on her, Paul Allen's sister, who became in charge of the estate after Paul passed away. So short-sighted to sell the team to a D-bag like this. I mean, you couldn't have put some provision to make sure whoever bought the team would keep the Blazers and Portland? Because this is looking not good. I mean, it's clear that both sides definitely have the wherewithal to go a 15-round knockout fight. Posturing and everything. And, of course, homie can go do the Clay Bennett playbook and just boogie and just say, hey, this city's just unworkable. Tradition my ass. I'm going to go someplace where I can probably double the franchise's worth. And it's, shame on you, Miss Allen, for not really wanting to do a quick sell as opposed to really preserving Portland's interest. And I think that's what your brother would have wanted. Yeah, it may have worked out when it comes to the Seahawks, but if the Blazers leave Portland because of a short-sighted moment like this on your part, bad. Not a good legacy, honey child. That's all hands on deck. Okay. I talked last week. Let's talk a little Queens. I mentioned the whole thing with Sandy Brondello. And, Angel Reese, isn't she so miserable? Right? Right, because they couldn't get off their plane because, like I said, Barry was at the WNBA All-Star game. Had a great moment with Caitlin Clark. But when they get off the plane, they were like, hey, you can't get off the plane as a VIP. He's like, well, we're VIPs. And I'm like, no, Caitlin Clark's a VIP. Y'all are just sitting there riding their coattails and inhaling the gold dust. Don't tell that to the Angel Reese, Bayou Barbie lovers. I had their All-Star game, and like I said, Barry had tea with the ladies, had some really encouraging words for Caitlin Clark. Once again, don't be mad, people. Right? It's an honor for whoever's in office to come hang out. And Barry chose the ladies, obviously. Good moment, right? And All-Star game itself, though, apparently stinky diaper. Pretty much all the content creators that I follow as far as the Queens of the Court are concerned, they said it turned into the NBA All-Star game. Yeah, you had Caitlin shooting, logo threes from Cairo, basically. But yeah, whatever. And I see the chick, Miss Jones, who won the MVP. Now she completes the Triple Crown, where she's won like a Finals MVP and I think a League MVP, I believe. Good for her. But otherwise, and chick had a dunk too. That was pretty cool. But from what I understand, though, I didn't watch the game because you couldn't, for all the, I don't know, for all the whiskey in Ireland, you couldn't get me to watch that All-Star game. And when the simps come out angry in terms of people paying $400 for this product, and it just was a laughable, as far as the effort put forth. And you have all kinds of folks. It seems like they want to talk more about Kathy Englebert's future than the product that was on the floor. Boy, they really want Kathy's scalp, don't they? They're just not relenting. Yeah, and it's just like I said with Angel Reese. Will you learn how to make a layup? I mean, it is a joke how you think you're such a game changer, and because you're bigger than a lot of folks, you can get a lot of rebounds and get empty calories. But from a skill level, I gotta be kidding me. And this idea that you're some hottie that's worthy of being a Victoria's Secret model is, See, this is what's wrong with this world. You create these delusional actors, and once you give them a runway where they can fulfill their delusional aspirations, we get monsters like Angel Reese. There's a lot of unlikable people in that league, but I'm telling you, she's in my top 10 and probably a lot of other people's. And maybe when it comes to me, not for the reasons y'all don't like her, but I got plenty of reasons why I just find her to be just intolerable. All right, folks. More on basketball when we get to a closer look. But when we return, we are going to flip to Beautiful Game Life, hash some things out with that. Be back momentarily. All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chilling like a Vicha Karvashkalia. Yes, indeed. It is time to talk some Beautiful Game Life. Pitch side, yeah. Obviously, the World Cup over, kind of moving back down in the order of things we talk about. Residual from the World Cup, people asking, still, what does this World Cup rank? But the World Cup is over. Everybody in Spain is still on cloud nine, including my man, Fabian Ruiz. Enjoy your vacation. But my God, the transfer window is a crackling. Wow. I had a couple of things I already had sketched out for this segment. But then, the World Cup ended and took a couple of days for things to get settled. And then the usual shenanigans that make summertime leading up to another European and global campaign. Just, it's pure comedy. It's great theatrics from, some of the commentators, some of the folks, the clickbaiters who will throw anything out there. And then, the passionate supporters who know more than anybody. And I've already had this thing, like the kid from, Diamande. And we got a local connection here, apparently. It looked like PSG was going to sign him at one point. And then Real Madrid. That's to throw their hat in the ring. And this is what I'm not so angry about as a PSG fan. Because, when Olise, that Mr. Olise, when he decided to stay at Bayern, and which he should have, because he had no money, when it mattered, the World Cup, got to call a spade, as Ben Yandel says. That was a wise move. And so, if you are the folks at Los Blancos, now that you have the chosen one there, you cannot walk away with egg on your face. It's bad enough that the infidels PSG or the reigning two-time champions, you just can't sit there and not make a big splash. And so they want Diamande, which is fine, whatever. All kinds of other things going on in this world, but that seems to be the big thing. With we're going to probably, I don't know, is it going to be like 130, maybe 150 million? But basically with Bayern, it's just saying, yeah, we want to keep Elise in Munich. We got to make a splash. And they're making some other moves too. Let me see here. I guess with him coming there possibly, the whole Vinny's going to go to Arsenal, which is interesting. There's a lot of stuff still to come because obviously PSG is being really quiet, and I think some of the Prim clubs as well. I mean, we still got a lot of time in this window, but I just love it that once the dust settled from the World Cup, it's like, oh, it's on like donkey, MFK, right? The funny thing for me always is going to be the PSG wackos, right? They overreact to everything. Right? And Mark Damon, PSG, INT, PSG, Westchester. And every year I go through this. And because, Campos and Nasser El Khalifa, they sort of just work their magic. And it's like, because they suffered so much PTSD all the years the Red and Blues were not able to win Champions League, now that PSG definitely has a seat at the table, I wish some of these wackos would just calm down with their negativity. And you should know by now, when it comes to this team, they have mysterious ways. Obviously, when Real Madrid, given their prestige, gets into the ring, and let's face it, when they don't get what they want, okay, we're going on the rampage to make sure we save face. Because that's what Los Blancos does. And so I say, to a lot of these PSG fans who get all queasy about, see, it's happening again. So what? It's Real Madrid. They're the biggest club in the world. They want somebody, let's find a way to get them. Now you gotta be smart as you've been, PSG, and finding the Vitinhas and Yao Neveses and my man, getting a Kavicha Kvaratskhelia. That's how you take care of that, instead of crying on the internet about how inept our front office is when you are the reigning two-time European champions. Just saying. I think it's kind of interesting, though, as far as, talk a little bit of World Cup residual. Man, I don't know if this is Zlatan just being Zlatan, but he's basically saying one and done. Lady Lowe seems to think, yeah, she wouldn't be surprised if this was it for him. And I can see, because he is that cool. He's all like, okay, the world needed to see how cool I am, because now you knew, and not a personality. And maybe it's like, yeah, that was fun, but okay, now I'm just going to go back to being Zlatan and being all that. Be curious to see what Mr. Ibrahimovic does next. MLS, okay, isn't it crazy? We've had 3 match days since the World Cup. Yeah, so much to unpack, really, when it comes to the MLS. A lot going on. Let me start. Portland, 2 wins and a draw. So there's reason to believe up in the Rose City. And Seattle got a tough loss last night. Liwa in Griezmann land. I think Griezmann scored in this first game for Orlando City. No word really as far as what Lewandowski is going to do. My question right now would be, when it comes to Liwa and Griezmann landing in MLS, what is the expectation? For me, the expectation is huge. I do feel that, I took a swipe at some of my MLS brethren that I share a USL love with. It wasn't really a swipe. But along those lines, if you're going to have some of these folks who are a little bit long in the tooth come to MLS, you've got to be like Zlatan was. You've got to be like, what's my man? Mr. Mueller, right, for Vancouver. We don't need more preloads and folks like that who are just, not even like Marco Reese is like that. I mean, if you're going to come over here from Europe, you got to make an impact. You got to make it a reason for people, especially the people on the soccer pennant galleries who hate on this league. And when these guys flop or just basically coast and cash paychecks, it's easy to piss all over MLS. So I do think that these 2 signings, and I think the other cat that came over from Bayern, they need to make a real strong impact. They do. I think it's no longer acceptable for these cats to come over here and have nothing in the tank, especially at a league where, unlike the rest of the world, different teams actually win. Okay, yeah, LAFC. I know I try not to talk about my teams too much, but hey, what can I tell you? Son and Denny B unlocked. But I think they've scored in every game since we've come back, which is really huge. I don't know what that says, other than the CONCACAF curse is real. Obviously the World Cup break gave a lot of people time to rest, rethink. Different team than what you saw going into the break that was basically on life support. Luckily, they did enough early on that even with, I think, Vancouver, who has 2 games in hand, I think they were, 3 or 4 of the Supporters' Shield race. Nashville's leading, of course. So a lot going on there as far as MLS is concerned. The rest of the world, Pep's not going to Italy. Still arguing with people about Pep versus Lucho. But, that's just because, this is what irritates me about folks that root for the Premier League. I'm sitting here going, Lucho's won the treble in La Liga and now did it with a team as PSG that never had any money in their wallet. And still you're sitting here licking Pep's toes because he did it in the Premier League. Yeah, you're right. And, I sit there when you hear, because I have a lot of good friends who are obviously have love for Premier League teams. And, I'll sit there and talk about, American commentators. And they'll, sit there and pee on someone like Max Bretos or some of the other people I like. And I'm sitting there thinking, with all the insufferable people that call games in England, ever watch a Champions League match? I got Premier League fans and some of the other, championship, some of the most insufferable. But hey, it's a free world, free country. You do you. The other thing I really dig is Jurgen Klopp. He's somebody I've said for years, if people in the soccer world I could go out and have pints with, Jurgen Klopp would definitely be one of them. And I love how when he takes over Germany's national team, he basically goes to the media and just says, I ain't taking no disrespect. You all come at me, I'll walk away from this B. Okay? We ain't playing that. And he has that kind of clout to sort of issue that and just say, I'm doing this because I want to get Germany back to the summit. But you're all good at that. Treat me like a DB. I'll treat you like a DB. Okay? And I can easily go walk and do something else. So I like Jurgen Klopp basically putting his foot down and saying this is how it's going to be from the jump. All right, folks, that's pitch side. When we return, we'll do a little closer look. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. So we're ice cold chilling, like Kavicha Carvascalia. What can I tell you, man? Number 7. Well. It's time to get to the point of the Foxtrotting and the Foxhole podcast we love. And that's where we opinionate, editorialize, talk a little trash, a closer look. We'll see if I can keep this thing somewhat in the reservoir. Because obviously, the Kang, stay the Kang, there's a splash. The World Cup is over. Now LeBron can have the stage to himself. LeBron, after much speculation, the whole Miami fake out, ends up signing a 2-year deal to play in the city of brotherly love, alongside Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and the recently acquired Jaylen Brown, among others. This is a stacked team. Takes the minimum, 2 years, $8 million. Okay? Of the landing spots, if you are ring chasing and you want one more shot at least catching Kobe, let alone getting 6 to get, with MJ and Kareem. This is probably the most logical place to land. A lot of people thought he should have went back to Cleveland to complete the story, but hey, you brought Cleveland the first championships in '64. You've done that. This is really about, hey, this is my last shot to really have a slice. I talked earlier about him and Brady kind of not wanting to let go of the spotlight. And this is this is an interesting conversation. I'm just going to tell you, right? Because this is his 5th stop if you count Cleveland twice. You've got lots of people talking about the reason why he's been such a specimen for so long, PEDs and a whole lot of other stuff. And that conversation will not go away if you are not a Bron sexual and you are a dedicated Bron hater. He's so polarizing. I mean, right? You've got the whole twerking clown, China loving, woke sports media impresario. But for me, all those things, I mean, it's just, yeah. As a Laker fan, I know I'm rejecting my teams again in my fandom, but oh well. I'm not a homer, and when I do, it has relevance. In this particular case, it does. As for me, now grant you, the NBA, like MLS, when it comes to all the weird salary cap nonsense that GMs and capologists have to do to make this all work, there are some limitations in terms of flexibility. But then I think in this century, the sacrifices that Tom Brady and Tim Duncan made, and now LeBron, because, hey, I can sign, whatever contract I wanted. I don't know if there's a way to get back at the Lakers and Jeannie Buss, but I'm just like going, if so, boy, you're a spiteful mofo. I mean, we had to take your no-balling ass son, and we're still stuck with, I'm sure the Sixers do not have the flexibility to bring his non-contributing self to the city of brotherly love. But I was just sitting there thinking, you were here for 8 years. And mind you, This is why I'm not a Kobeite. I don't give Kobe the love that others do. And I know the rules are set up for you not to take less, but Tim Duncan did. Tom Brady did. And those guys, their legacy was enhanced by that. I mean, I don't care. You're a billionaire. And you're going to continue to make money after you're done playing. And if you really wanted to help your legacy, and I don't know, maybe you and your weird obsession with Kobe now obviously coming to his team and then basically coming to his hometown. I mean, what? Maybe you, in your own mind, you know you can't ever eclipse Jordan and Russell. Maybe the next best thing is to somehow take down Kobe's legend a peg. Kobeyites are never going to stand for that. I'm telling you, the Kobeyites, they're a fierce bunch. They are very smart and savvy. You know, the LeBron sexuals, you all just sit there and like to, try to bully us with a lot of empty calorie nonsense. These Kobeyites, they got history, knowledge, and perspective with them. But yeah, it's crazy because I think about, the opportunities he could have had. I mean, it is an incredible career. I mean, I would be a complete cynic to sit here and dismiss it, especially, when he was in the East. His time in the West, about what cynics said it would be many, many years ago, that, hey, he's got a lot of empty calories going to the East and he's going back there. So it is what it is as far as that goes. But you can't take away, the finals, the playoffs, the longevity, PEDs or not. All things being equal in terms of, what a career. We can call him a hypocrite, but we call a lot of folks hypocrite when it comes to their politics and their stances. And yeah, right, being all woke, but taking lots of money from China isn't going to ever sit well with a lot of people, nor should it. But that's the complexity of today's modern athlete, fair to say. I think his legacy, well, some people say he can't hurt it from this point. I think he can still. I think he did a lot of damage to it. He would have elevated himself because you have the COVID championship. And I always tell folks that when you win a championship in a season that's shortened by strikes, or in this case, a pandemic, you got to win another one in that window when you're good to validate that championship. But he did not do that in Los Angeles. In fact, other than those 2 years when he blew out his groin when the guy, supposedly massacred him, whatever. Point being is, it was lawlessly mediocre. And I thought that hurt his legacy. So going to a stacked team, and I don't know what the pecking order is going to be in Philadelphia, but if you do not come up successful, and as we saw many, many moons ago, remember when they tried to pair Dwight Howard and Steve Nash with Kobe? Sometimes you create these super teams and it goes bust. And I kind of feel that's kind of happened to LeBron, especially with the Lakers. Obviously with AD and whatever the case may be. But I think this hurts his legacy. I think it hurts his legacy if this turns... Let's put it this way. If they don't make... crap. Let's really, Willie. If they don't make deep runs, I do believe... I mean, I don't know. I mean, when I say hurt your legacy... But that's just it. There's so much conversation right now about Jordan, about Kobe, about Magic, about Larry, about Kareem, and where the Kang, who stayed a King, fits into that, because we're all witnesses. Well, yes, this is going give Clutch and all these people, whatever. This is going to create a storyline. I mean, Mr. Silver is going pennies from heaven. Thank you. Because I don't think the Cleveland story resonates as much. Here, you go into a loaded team. And The Knicks, obviously a great story. Going to be coming in as defending champs, first time in 53 years. Without the monkey on their back. The Celtics trying to quietly retool. Who knows what happens in Indiana as far as Halliburton and all that kind of stuff. The Freak down in South Beach. Now, we've seen this before in the Eastern Conference when things have aligned and the East still remained a paper tiger, if you know what I mean. But yes, we have lots of intrigue. So, all right. I guess I'll leave it at that. I just think his legacy takes a major hit if you don't get a chip. I mean, if you do get a chip, look out for Josh Harris becoming a major player like Stan Kroenke is. Just saying. All right, folks. When we come back, we will wrap things up with the NFL report and some TMCA time, as we always do. See you momentarily. All right. Welcome back to the Foxhole, your faithful host, Ken Harlan. Thanks for putting up with the shenanigans, the technical snafus. Glad to be able to bring you some engaging sports content twice a week with this and the Aftershocks. And of course, a little cultural slice every now and then with the scene. Like and subscribe. Sponsor if you like. Be a guest, even better. Because we've got some interesting guests to come. Stay tuned with that. You know how it is when you are a one-person crew. And we ain't a YouTube star yet. Where, hey, I can throw out booking fees to get guests. I got to give their time. They got to get my time when it's possible. But it's always great when people come to the Foxhole. It's great having SJ come back. She's about to drop an episode that we also shot at the same time. And as she said on last Aftershocks, she's going to be rolling out a lot of cool content in the weeks to come. So, yeah. Hang with us, folks. It's only going to get better as time goes on so many levels. Okay. Let's tee it up here. The NFL report coming at you. Yeah. Teams are in camp. The fever is percolating among the 32 fan bases. Because when it comes to NFL and people getting the NFL on, it's its own distinct animal. I mean, you can say that about a lot of sports. Obviously soccer, like I said, soccer fandom and supporting culture, that's its own unique animal. And NFL, in its own way, it's its own unique animal as well. When it comes to passion, we're splitting hairs. I just think they function differently, and that's the difference. They function differently, and that's the difference, yeah. Good one, Ken. NFL report coming at you. So I don't know what's going on with Shanny. Yeah, Kyle Shanahan. A really bad accident? I mean, I guess there was no Drinky Winky or no Tiger Woods, Yeah. kind of shenanigans going on, but still, going to be limited and can't, as far as camp goes. That was kind of serious. So, hey, our thoughts, prayers, hopes, whatever you all want to send his way for a speedy and healthy return to the 49ers. Yeah, that's some messed up stuff, especially when it's like, hey, I don't even know, I can barely show up to camp. I'm so roughed up. I mentioned this on Aftershocks about the grass is green. It's going to be interesting to see where that all goes with the owners. Still hearing people whining and complaining, but everybody's got a platform, so they got to bitch about something. If it's either I want to play on grass or how come my Manning rating went down. Hey, I got a platform, they got a platform, so That's what's so great about being in a free country. You're entitled to spout about whatever you feel. Um, the NFL still trying to maneuver in the courts to get out of the Gruden lawsuit. Now I know Chucky being Chucky. I think Chucky wants to take this to the hilt. But come on, lawyers, like Kaepernick, get into a room, settle this darn thing, and move the F on. There's enough cheddar to go around where this doesn't have to be tawdry. Unless, of course, if you're Chucky and just says, hey, kid, this ain't about the victimhood Olympics. These mofos slandered me and ruined my rep. And so I may understand Chucky just like saying, no, man, we are going 15 rounds in a purge type of battle. Okay. What is this nonsense about Jake Paul? Yeah, that Jake Paul. We talked about Jake, Logan Paul. But he wants to play for the Browns and play with Shedeur. God, this is so 2026 and the bad side of 2026. So there's lots of bad sides, but this is one of them where the social media influencer thinks he has enough skills, and we're going back to Tom Brady trying too hard to like be relevant, messing around with this guy. But this guy teaming up with the ultimate social media quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. But come on, like this guy can make an NFL roster, and if he did for clicks, that would just show you not only the league, but how messed up Jimmy Haslam and that organization is. There's no way this clown's getting on a roster. Maybe for like a giggle or two per minute, but come on. British Petroleum on that one, yo. Yeah. I mean, you can't make a lot of this stuff up. But content before everything. Okay. And speaking of wrecking the league, like Johnny Manziel said about the Browns, about Mr. Pavia, Mr. Diego, the Ravens obviously took enough of a look with camp started. You ain't good enough to make the roster. As I thought with this guy, I do think I see UFL or CFL on your future before you get a shot to play in the NFL. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no. Okay. So, Jacoby Brissett, the Cards, long at impasse, apparently come to terms today. There was like a $15 million deal. Not sure what the term is. There's a possibility where it could get up as high as 21, 22. Not bad for a journeyman of his particular resume. I know it was with my Commanders, so it's like I don't hate on him. Even going back to his time with the Patriots. Yeah, the Cardinals, they're always going to be the Cardinals, and this is the kind of move that, yeah, par for the course, as they say, right? Tyreek Hill comes out from under his hold to let us know he's still rehabbing. He saw him running. He says he has no power in his left leg. He's like, yeah, I'm getting there, but I ain't got. I don't know what power means when you got the kind of wheels he has. I'm guessing it's like us mere mortals. You can still run faster than us backwards, but in terms of being able to be a terror as he once was earlier in his career before this horrific injury, yeah. And that's just a big debate whether or not he should sit out even longer. But I think I agree with the folks that say, even if you're on your way back, you got to get the iron while it's still kind of hot. You go another whole season, people might forget you, but then again, people have forgot Odell Beckham Jr. So. Hold on a second. Hey, what's up? Hey, are you home? Yeah, I'm just yeah, I'm recording, but I'll call you back as soon as I'm done. I'm almost done. I'll call you back in about 15. Hey, folks, we're talking to SJ. Yeah, okay. Perfect, perfect. Okay. So, hey, so I'll call you, I'll talk to you in about half an hour then? Okay, perfect. We'll talk to you soon, SJ. Everybody says hi. Okay. Bye. Okay. Okay. We will catch up with you soon enough, SJ. Bye. Hey, legendary SJ from SJ Gets Down. We'll take her calls whenever she calls us. But yeah, so let me get back to what I was saying about. Okay, we talked about Tyreek Hill, no power in his leg. It's going to get to somebody else that we talk way too much about, Mr. Ayuk. Now let's talk about crazy going on insane. You will not give the 49ers a time of day. And you have to give the 49ers a time of day in order to get released. You're acting like a weirdo, so I would really think the Commanders will not touch you with a 10-foot pole. But nonetheless, and who knows, even with the money that was voided, you buy a $10 million house in Loudoun County near the Commanders facility. If I'm Jaden Daniels, I double down with the security for myself and my mom because this guy really weirds me out. And he might be one of those guys that ends up stalking and actually doing some harm to the Daniels. I've always thought something weird about this, even when he was with the Niners before he got hurt, and he was like posting. Somehow he had gotten clips of. This is like when Daniels first came to the Commanders, and he was like showing clips. This guy's got like a weird obsession that kind of, if I'm Mr. JD5 and his mom, yeah, and this guy's buying a house in Loudoun County, you triple down on the security because there's no way the Commanders can sign this guy. And when he doesn't get his way, who knows what kind of weird whack-ball stuff this mofo is capable of. Speaking of the Commanders, this is a Redskins one. How about RG Me? Yeah, that Robert Gifford III. Now his wife, who somehow, because she gets to be part of his podcast, she gets to have a voice. And this is not me being misogynist or picking on women. But her, who was not married to him at the time, he was still married to Rebecca, coming out and being pissy about Washington, about the way they handled his career. Speaking of Kyle Shanahan and his dad, I know this is going to be harsh, but I forget what his current wife's name, but this is a British Petroleum for you, sugar beets. Why don't you just look at your husband in the eyes and say, gee whiz, if I had been patient and let my vanity get to me after Haloti Nada landed on my knee and Kirk Cousins came in and balled and I freaked out and came back too early, none of this would have been on the Redskins, Mike Shanahan, and the others that were making the decisions for the organization at that time. A very talented staff. They went on to do a lot of great things in this league. But I'm tired of hearing it from you. I'm tired of hearing, and her, if Rebecca, his first wife, who was around at the time, had something to say about it, I might listen to her. But you, shut the F up. Pardon my language, folks, but it's just like that. We don't need to hear from that. We don't need to hear from you, RGB. Especially when you will never admit you and your hubris brought this down on you. Okay? You brought this down on you. Stop blaming the Redskins / Commanders football team. You showed a little patience and not freaked out and peed your pants when Kirk Cousins came in, who was a better fit for not only Shanny's system, but also Jay Gruden's. We might be having a different conversation. Maybe you don't get hurt. Maybe you get traded to a better destination. Who knows? But that was 2012. STFU already about it. Enjoy that you've got a good job being a commentator. You and your wife can talk about your podcast and about everything else that makes us nauseating, but stop talking about that. Book's closed. Okay. Boy, I had to get that one out there. Then you got the Chiefs. Oh, Chiefs Kingdom. Well, of course, if we look at Coach Jay Bay in his Chiefs Queendom shirt, hey, that guy just never stops, does he? He just never does. But did you see the initial renderings for the replacement to Arrowhead? It's going to be out in, I guess, suburban Kansas. Kind of does, it's going to have a translucent roof, but still on the exterior pay homage to Arrowhead, excuse me. Brother Jeff, obviously, because we were all born in Kansas City and aged actually enough to remember the old Municipal Stadium. They thought it was kind of lame that they did not have some kind of homage to Municipal Stadium where they played in 72 or something to war paint. And I said to my bro, hey, hold tight. Like with a lot of these things, that's the initial rendering. Just like the first, drawings of what was the Redskins Stadium or Commanders, RFK. It evolves quickly, is all I'm saying. Is that, yeah, give it time. That thought. Because you see the Bills Stadium, they got this huge folding table that's all broken as part of like some kind of, installation art. Cool stuff, right? What else do we have? And then you know how the Bengals with their, white Bengal Tiger uniforms, they're going to create this weird whiteout later this year. Everybody's going to be black and white alternate, and the field's going to have this whole, it's going to mimic a white Bengal Tiger. Okay. That doesn't excite me as much as the Rams bringing back the classic looks. I've been screaming about it for years. One more feather, I should say. And if you follow my podcast or the platforms, you know I've been saying this forever. The Rams bringing back their blue and whites from the Fearsome Foursome era, and as a bonus, kind of like the extra reel that Mr. Schwartz watched in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the hullabaloo. We get the 51 Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch throwbacks as well. And people are like, I don't like the stripe. I'm like, hey, Banana Bread Head, this is what they wore in 51. It's one of the better throwbacks I've seen yet. I mean, I don't like the jersey that you can buy that Jimmy Maggio of CBS LA was holding up. But from a distance, good job, especially with the whites. Although I would love to see them at some point also do the dark blue and whites. That whole Dodger look that the Dodgers, Rams, and Lakers all had in the early to mid 60s. Yeah, very classic stuff there. All right, folks. Well, it is Sunday, and that means the folks at the Foundry, they took care of their work on Friday and left the stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties on the docks to get even more ripe. You know what we're talking about because we had their weekend driver drop them off earlier today. The stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties that come in complimentary, regular, and XL sizes. Consult the Tommy Carcetti era of The Wire to know what I'm talking about. These stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties are given out every week for those whose actions during the week earn the distinction, or as we like to say, them being who they be. All right, folks, TMCA time. Named for two really major, well, we'll just put it this way, two people who are institutions at waste treatment facilities because they're that bad. TMCA time, the Foxhole. Well, I'm going to give, this is a 3-strip, 3 XLs for the Hall of Shame, and XLs for everybody involved. As far as Argentina at the conclusion of the World Cup acting like a bunch of 2-ball bees. Okay? No need for that. Take the L, get off the stage. You reigning champions have more class than that. Yeah, Mr. Paredes, Mr. Total Clown Show and others. No need for that. Very bad optic. Okay. This is a 4 strip. This is 4XLs. USA columnist Nancy Armour invoking Emmett Till, as all the race hustlers have been doing, and they're going to get theirs too. But a columnist, really, when it comes to Caitlin Clark's story, bringing Emmett Till into the narrative, I don't care if the game was played in Chicago. Do you all realize, you people who are bringing Emmett Till into narratives, the horrific death that young man suffered at the hands of those POSs down there in Money, Mississippi in 1955? Do you really know that story? Because if you did, you wouldn't be bringing up some trifling, you wouldn't be using his name for your content creation or this silly point you're making, especially when it comes to that silly league. Anyway, I could be off in the next 45 minutes of that. By 4XLs for Nancy Armour. Gonna give 2XLs. Tony Romo. Tony Como, more like. It's called ride service, bro. It's called ride service. How are you getting a DUI in this day and age? And I know people go out and they get a little something in them. But I'm like, man, you are top flight. You make good money. Why embarrass yourself? Why deal with this kind of nightmare? I don't get it with you mofos. A car service. Quit being so cheap. Especially if you're going to get your drink on. Okay. I'm going to give ESPN a 3 strip. 3XLs. The way they handle the firings. It could have been done better, especially with Ryan Clark. As much as I despise Ryan Clark, he deserved better than that. And I'm going to give 3XLs to Acho and Stephen A. Smith for their ridiculous takes trying to defend Ryan Clark. I mean, the level of disrespect there. Saying, well, he built it. And I love guys like Sean Salisbury, Mark Schlereth, Merrill Hodge, all these people that, when the show was actually good, provided good football information, as opposed to all this woke nonsense. It's got, well, he built what it was. No, he destroyed what it was. And you clowns coming up here, with your little pity party, I'm going to give Ryan Clark 3XLs for coming on platforms and crying like a little bee. Come on, man. Take the L. Like I said earlier, we've all been fired before, and we didn't take to the internet to cry like a little bee. Okay? I'm going to give Cam Scattaboo an XL for not using his noggin again. God grief. He's the kind of guy that's going to cause Jim Harbaugh to fucking have an aneurysm with your annex. I get you like being part of the Bam Bam twins, but doing backflips and other stuff like that, probably not the smartest thing to do. But hey, content before everything, right? Okay. I gotta give Angel Reese, I'm gonna give her an XL. She probably deserves more, but I don't want to give her. I don't want to flatter her by giving her more than that for being a supreme hater. So she'll just get an XL for being the chump she always will be. LeBron, you're gonna get 3 XLs. I haven't given you one. No, let's make it 4. 4 XLs for being the attention whore you will always be. Also, for not giving the Lakers a discount and making us take your no balling son. Yeah, that's definitely worth 4 XLs. And that has no bias. That's not my bias even coming through. This is just me being a basketball fan and a sports fan. Okay, lastly, I'm going to give 2 XLs for the Hall of Shame and complimentaries all around. The media and its never-ending desire to generate clicks. Okay, we all know, maybe you all don't know, You know, when it comes to California and their animals that become huge stars, we had I was at P22 for the longest time. Now it's Jackie and Shadow, the eaglets of Big Bear. Oh, Jackie basically has anemia and got attacked by some sub-adults and was rescued. So anyhow, she's in Ojai at the Raptor Center getting the care that she needs. While Shadow takes care of the eaglets. Was it Luna? And I forget the other one's name. But of course, because it being nature and the internet and the media knowing how to create clicks, when it comes to animal lovers, trying to create, spur controversy like, yeah, Shadow's about to move on. Well, maybe he is about to move on. This does happen with nature. But yeah, and you're going to incite clicks because when it comes to the animal lovers and the same thing with P22, it takes a whole life of its own. Yeah, I mean, shame on you trying to create drama and clicks over Jackie and Shadow. We're all pulling for Jackie to return, to get healthy enough to return. Maybe not. Maybe she moves on. Only in 2026, y'all. All right, folks, we have finally reached the finish line. It has been a heck of a day to get to this point. I hope to have Aftershocks out in a couple of days. And like I said, as we kind of migrate to getting a more regular schedule going, keep an eye out for new scene content. SJ gets down, all that stuff. As always, keep it clean, keep it tight. Enjoy some adult beverages. Stay safe and sane. Avoid the bracelets because nobody's got time for that bull jive. Enjoy some good beverages. Good food for the people that matter. Yeah, that's about it for episode. What are we at? 324, I believe it is. You have to look this up. Yeah, that's 324. And I think Aftershocks 55 is incoming Tuesday or Wednesday. In the meantime, keep it tight, keep it clean, keep it real. We'll see you when we see you.